Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor. Welcome everybody again to another episode of our show, bringing you another really fascinating guest today, helping to create a better tomorrow on some really unique fronts. We have the honor today of being joined by Michael Lahiff, who currently serves as Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of a company here in the Philadelphia area called ZeroEyes, which is an intelligent video analytics company that uses artificial intelligence with existing security camera technology, ultimately to detect weapons and ultimately send alerts to local staff and first responders to potentially negate dangerous situations, save lives. The company delivers what they call proactive, human-verified artificial intelligence gun detection solutions that integrate really nicely into existing security cameras to ultimately stop this, the wrath of mass shootings, of gun-related violence that we say, ultimately by reducing response times, helping to provide actionable intelligence and delivering, again, clarity to save lives. And it is ZeroEyes is the only AI-based gun detection platform with the United States Department of Homeland Security Safety Act designation. Prior to founding ZeroEyes, Mr. Lahiff served as the Director of Digital Programs at Comcast NBC Universal. There he oversaw the coordination between project management teams and software development teams, delivering numerous digital products. And before joining Comcast, Mr. Lahiff was the managing member of Horsemen Partners, which is a private equity fund focused on the acquisition of small and medium-sized businesses. Mr. Lahiff also spent 10 years in the U.S. Navy. 6 of those served as a Navy SEAL, and during service he received numerous medals, including the Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal, the Navy Good Conduct Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, NATO Medal, and many others. Mr. Lahiff holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Admin and Finance from Columbia College, his MBA in Private Equity and Venture Capital from here at the Wharton School at Penn, and we're honored to have him with us today. Michael Lahiff, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you, Mike. I would love to start things off as we typically do, just by handing you the floor for a little bit to talk a little bit more about you. I mean, you've been on this amazing journey of national service, of private equity, of entrepreneurship. Now, talk a little bit about the beginning, if you would. Take us back to where you grew up, how you got interested in national service, and a little of that early journey. That'd be a great way to start things off.
Yeah, I mean, born and raised here in Philadelphia. I grew up playing in the woods. I was in Boy Scouts. I grew up hunting. Neither of my parents served, but their parents did. Their fathers had an aunt that served and an uncle. But the military always stuck out to me. I just was always pretty fascinated with it when I was a kid. I loved going to like air shows, etc. I was playing in the woods with my friends growing up, all dressed up in camouflage. And then it was in 4th, 5th grade time frame. I got in trouble for something. I was a knucklehead when I was growing up, but I got in trouble. And so I couldn't watch TV. I was punished from TV. So my mom was like, my parents were like, go read a book. And my mom took me to the local, I think it was B. Dalton bookseller, might have been Barnes and Noble, but
yeah.
You can see them that much anymore.
I remember them. Yeah.
And I picked a book out because on the cover of it was a guy painted in camouflage hiding in the jungle, and there was a big gold Navy SEAL trident on it. And the book was called Men Behind the Trident, and it was about Vietnam frogmen. And I had no idea what a frogman was or a Navy SEAL at the time, but I took that book and I just devoured it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And then like within a year, the movie Navy SEALs came out with Charlie Sheen. And I was like, oh, that's it, done. And it was pretty funny. So I actually wrote in my sixth grade yearbook, you had to write in your sixth grade yearbook, in 20 years, I will be ... And everyone wrote like they're going to be playing for the Philadelphia 76ers, the Phillies, the Eagles. I wrote, I'll be United States Navy SEAL working on top secret missions. And I'm going to help reduce crime and poverty or crime and pollution by 70%. Why I picked that number, I have no idea. And
Nice
so
number.
I totally forgot that I wrote that. And when I went and graduated SEAL training, my parents, one of my friends I grew up with was around the time his parents were cleaning out their attic or something, came across it, and they were all sitting around laughing, reading like all my grade school buddies, like what they were going to be doing in 20 years and kind of where they're at now. And then they read mine and they were like, holy shit. And they gave the book to my dad. And then when I graduated, my dad handed me my sixth grade yearbook, which I haven't seen in, 20 years. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. But so that's how I grew up. And so when I was in college when 9/11 happened, and I wasn't doing much. I was a knucklehead. I did okay in school. I didn't apply myself. And then when 9/11 happened, it was roughly a year after that. I was like, that it took me about a year to finally like get my shit together and say, this is it. I'm dropped out of college. I'm going to go enlist in the Navy. That's what I did.
Man, that's awesome, and it goes without saying thank you, obviously for your long service to the country and protecting us along the way. So no, I appreciate you giving us some of that background, Mike. Ultimately, few of us, have the experience and obviously the situations that you lived through as a special operator, as a Navy SEAL. But clearly, you saw things in terms of active shooter situations that were quite different than obviously what we have back on the homeland, and but nonetheless equally I guess strange and violent in their own sense. You're off killing bin Laden and doing other important special ops stuff. And here we have, nutty people going into schools and churches and concerts and so forth, shooting up a bunch of people. Obviously, there's a lot of parallels. Can you talk just a little bit about how some of your experience as a special operator, as a Navy SEAL in very unique active shooter situations got you thinking a bit about doing something about it back here on the homeland?
Yeah. One, I just want to clarify something. I did not go on a bin Laden raid and I did not shoot bin Laden, but yes,
Okay.
I wish I was part of that, but I wasn't. The um, so, as a special operator overseas, you have to go, or any soldier really, but you're constantly going in places that you're not really wanted, and you have to, you have an objective, a mission objective. If it's to capture someone or blow up a ID factory or whatever. And before we ever went out on a mission, you would have intel, you would have intelligence, you would have pictures of the people, the layout, maps. You look at all this different intelligence packages that came along. So you would put yourself in the best possible position to win whatever you were going into, to the point that you wanted to cheat. And so, and I cheat, just quote unquote, it's, you just want to have the upper hand because you want to come home with all your teammates, right? You want to get the mission done, but you also all want to come home. And after I left the military, this 2013, I was in business school, 2014, 2015, then I was at Horsemen Partners. But when I was home all the time, it was, and nothing's changed since Columbine happened in 1999 when I was a senior in high school. But every time you turn on the news, there's another school shooting. So much, there's so many of them that a lot of them don't even make the news anymore, which is really disturbing.
Man.
But and so I have 4 kids, And we kept seeing them, and me and the other co-founders, we'd sit around and talk about different business ideas and be like, man, what problem can we solve? Because you're going to go start a business, you have to solve a problem for someone. And we were like, man, someone needs to do something about this active shooter thing. People have been talking about making things change since Columbine 1999. Here we are 23, 24 years later. Nothing's changed. It's only gotten worse. And when we're sitting there looking at it, we're like, okay, it's a really terrible situation. You got some nutbag that decides to go shoot up a school, a church, a synagogue, a mall, whatever, military base, their hospital. Pick your location. It's happened everywhere in the United States, but it seems very random, and it's just like people kind of throw their hands up, like, oh, nothing we could do as long as there's guns. This is just going to keep happening. And I was like, all right, well, we're not going to. Guns aren't going to be outlawed anytime soon in the United States. So it was like, all right, how do we do something? I was like trying to really look at the problem big. What can we do? So then you would look at like the response times, and the average response time to these events is like 15 to 18 minutes, which is an eternity when bullets are flying. Especially when there's people injured, laying on the ground and bleeding, and you want to get there as soon as possible. So we're like, how do we shift the timeline to the left? How do we give more time back to the people that are responding, to the victims, to the people that are there so they could get to safety? And we're like, well, how do we stop the shooter before the shooter even starts? And if you look at a lot of these events, what we started seeing was that they have the guns out in the open very early on. Not every time, but a lot of the times they do. Because you think about the type of mentality of a person that wants to go inflict as much damage as they can. They're not thinking like a normal human being. There's obviously something not right, and they don't care. They just don't care. They want people to see them. They want to be like, oh, look at me. I'm the big bad villain. I'm coming to get all of you now. I'm getting my payback. And so when we were looking at that, we were like, wait, there's security cameras everywhere. People can do facial recognition. Why don't we just focus on detecting guns? Because then once that gun is detected, boom, you can send that alert out, and you get that alert to first responders. That help and to the people that are on campus or local, so they can start getting people away to safety and help direct the people in. And then you got the first responders coming in. Why it's key for the first responders, it's actionable intelligence. Right. They know what the person's going to look like. They know what type of weapon. Is it a pistol or is it a rifle? Is there, how many shooters are? Oh, there's only one shooter. And this type of information is going to ease the first responders. They still have a very tough job to do. Their heart rate's going to be up. They're going to have the sweaty palms. They're going to get in tunnel vision when they're responding. But having more intelligence before going in, having more descriptions, and they know exactly where they're at, you're going to decrease the response time, and then you can save lives. And so that's drawing those parallels. Every time we were overseas, it was like, oh, we wanted more intel. We wanted more intel. Well, let's get the first responders more intel before they just show up blindly at one of these.
Yeah. Yeah. And continuing now off of that, because, you've put together this amazing team at the company. Obviously, you needed to assemble folks with your backgrounds and understanding sort of every possible scenario. But at the same time, you're bringing in these advanced tools, and AI, I don't need to say, I mean, it's such the hot topic nowadays. And we've had the honor of having folks on from various, areas of the military. I had Admiral Selby on the other day from Office of Naval Research talking about artificial intelligence, directed energy that sees the drones coming towards the aircraft carrier. Is it 50 miles out? When do we fire? The phalanx gun and all that stuff. You're dealing now with stuff a lot closer. Talk a little bit about sort of, obviously you got to bring in, I'm saying the nerds that know the AI really well, but talk about merging those cultures together, because you're dealing with 2023 technology plus, all the cool stuff that, talk about what it's been like to sort of build this from the ground up and integrate sort of these different sort of tool sets that you need to get this done.
Yeah, it's to have good AI, computer vision model, no matter what type of AI field it falls into. I'm going to focus on computer vision because that's where we're at. You need good data. If you don't have good data, and if you don't have a good annotation team that is constantly scrubbing your data set and being very, very disciplined about it, you're going to have crappy AI. And for our use case, if you have a bad computer vision model, you're going to get lots of false positives. And then not only that, you're going to increase the likelihood of getting a false negative, which is, we'll deal with false positives all day long because we put a human in the loop. We could get annihilated by them. It's okay. We could take that. It's the false negative that we're worried about. So you want to have really good data. And early on in the company, what we realized was, all right, well, we need good data. How are we going to get good data? We had to make it and create it ourselves. All the data that goes into our computer vision models, we created in-house. It's proprietary to us. How we annotate, how we segment the data, all the different attributes that we come across when it comes to like lighting, distance, type of camera, et cetera. We track all of that so we could see what levers we can pull so we could get better detections. So we decrease the likelihood of a false negative while also trying to decrease false positives. And it's the constant balance. The good thing about bringing folks in from merging the two worlds of, technologists and military veterans that want to make a difference. It was, I'm not going to say easy, that would be the wrong word, but merging those two worlds with a common mission, people that want to go do good and want to do something. It's not easy, but it helps when you have a really good mission and vision. So you can rally everyone around what you're trying to do. And, what the veterans brought to the table, at least early on, is the teamwork, the leadership, the communication skills, not being timid to go out and try something new and put their name and reputation on the line. And we had to do a lot of testing. We had to go out and film ourselves in all these different areas. We had to really put it out there while we had, the technologists that we have with us. They loved it because they were riding side by side with us. And we're like, hey, we could do X, Y, and Z. We would have some good ideas. And they're like, yeah, we could make that a reality. And like going back and forth and whiteboarding sessions together. Because computer vision's been around for a very long time. It's not like it just popped up in the last 10 years. But what we're seeing now is the processing power needed and the cost of that to put this at scale has significantly come down over the years. That being able to train models and using a processing power for that has gotten easier and easier, more accessibility to the right technology that you need to make that happen, and the right hardware. And there's all these great theories out there. You got super smart PhDs working on all this stuff, and it looks great in a textbook or a classroom setting. But when you go take it to the real world where the rubber meets the road, things will start to fall apart. And the vets and the people that we brought in the company that weren't those technologists in the beginning really helped take that from the whiteboard to reality.
Outstanding. Yeah, you've been clearly extremely successful. You have a bunch of use cases that you go through on the website, and we'll put the links in the bio, talking about educational facilities, commercial, government, and then you parse these by indoor and potential outdoor applications. Big partners, Subaru here in North America, FedEx, DHL, and I'd love you to talk a little bit about some of the. Obviously nothing confidential here, but one of the things I sort of gleaned on the site was you have these very large footprint facilities that are out there, whether they're the auto manufacturers or in the case of mail sorting, where you got a very large sort of groundwork to cover, but you have to be very specific that you're highlighting the right people amongst this big workforce. Could you say a few words about some of these commercial successes that you've had? Because I think they're quite interesting to as an example of the types of adoption that you saw early on in terms of the company.
You just mean for the type of clients that we?
Yeah. If you could talk a little bit about just sort of, because you're obviously being very successful getting these clients on board. So anything you can talk there.
It's a signal of what's wrong with the United States and what's going on. So the rewind back time a little bit. Started the company in 2018, got an MVP out fairly quickly, but it was super. Looking back on that MVP, it's pretty embarrassing. Got it to a beta site, heads down focus there for a year, working on a couple, being able to scale to multiple cameras and being agnostic to those cameras, being able to run inference across all those cameras with a computer vision model that will detect guns that we wanted to. And then, great, now we're creating alerts. Who's getting those alerts and how they're going to receive them. That was like our three biggest objectives. And then that took a while. I mean, we're still working to this day. It's never complete. Like our engineering teams are always working on it, always improving and finding the tweaks. And we started off in schools because that's what we got tired of seeing, school shootings. We're like, we don't want to see another kid get shot. Like, this is nuts. And so we're focused on schools, started landing some early customers, 2019, 2020, and then COVID hit. Well, guess what? No schools were in session and they went into a holding pattern. But what happened in the US was there was lines 3, 4, 5 blocks long to gun stores to the point where they sold out of assault rifles. Like, we sold out of assault rifles in the United States. People were very worried that, the world was going to shit very quickly, like zombie apocalypse style or something. And then you had all these things going on with like defunding the police and the fight against police. And then so the police you see pull back in a lot of these cities, which is very unfortunate. And that all merged into this perfect storm of gun violence. Like, it's an unfortunate perfect storm, but that's basically what it is, to gun violence at levels that we've never seen in the United States. And it's horrendous. Then schools come. So when the schools were out, that was happening. We started going out to conferences and, we were doing a lot of live demos and we were making a name for ourselves. And we got into a position during COVID because there wasn't employees at a lot of these places. They're like, hey, can you guys come in and install and test while we don't really have anyone here so we can see? We're worried about the disgruntled employee or, an active shooter unfolding at our place. And so we were like, yeah, of course. And then so we started landing commercial clients, and it was everywhere from a warehouse to a corporate campus to office buildings to shopping malls. And then schools came back online, and then school shootings started again. And then we have those three. But then you also have active shooters on military bases. And so we started going into military bases. And I mean, if you look at the history of active shooters, mass shootings, even just in the last 10 years, it's everywhere. It's not in like one. Everyone talks about the schools because it's terrible, but right. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad that we need your product, but I'm glad that it's being adopted this quickly, and I love to see companies like yours, that have such, they've only been around a couple of years, but you're getting the clients, and it's
I tell people, I'm like, hey, if we get rid of active shooters, mass shootings, like there's no more.
Right.
We want. Yeah. Are we going to? The business is gone. Fine. Right. But guess what? We want. I'll find something else to do.
Right. What about the because you also sort of parse on the website sort of the outdoor, indoor potential applications, and obviously I don't follow them all, but I do remember, as you were mentioning, Columbine. Columbine started outside, and there was a bunch of shooting, and then ultimately it got to the school. I think the same thing in Sandy Hook. Can you say a few words about that, because it seems like if your technology can stop things from even actually getting in the schools. And what are, I guess, just some of the unique issues that come with the indoor-outdoor component of developing this technology?
Yeah, it's the real reason why we say indoor-outdoor on our website is just for customers. Just because some people are like, oh, I just want to put it on exterior cameras, and it's like, no, you kind of want it on both. And here's why: that it's not every situation. A large majority of the time, it all starts in a parking lot. The person has the gun, like Sandy Hook started out in a parking lot in a fire. He parked his car in a fire lane. Parkland, he carried it in a bag into a stairwell, and then he was inside the stairwell on a video camera, pulls the gun out of the bag, and he takes some time there messing with his gun, probably pumping himself up mentally until he steps in the hallway to pull the fire alarm. Uvalde started out with crashed his truck, moved his way across the parking lot. You see this time and time again. However, there's those instances where it does start from inside. Or say, hey, you did get, in a perfect world for ZeroEyes, is the person's out in a parking lot, we get a detection before shots are fired, get the alert out, and they apprehend the individual before anyone is hurt. Perfect world for us, but we don't live in a perfect world. I hope that does happen one day. I truly do think it will happen, but all the other types of scenarios are going to happen. We're going to experience them too, where, yeah, maybe you do get the alert outside, but he's moving that person's moving so fast, they're already inside the building. You still need to know where they're going in that building, and you want to be on those cameras in there to get to detection, because when 911's receiving all their frantic phone calls, they could get that ZeroEyes alert. Now they could be like 5'10", white male, assault rifle, northeast corner of the main building, first floor. That was the last camera alert. And that's critical because when the police are responding, they have no idea what they're going into. It could be a 100-acre campus. It could be a 10-acre campus. That's still a large piece of land and a lot of buildings to work through. And you need to get them right to where the threat was, the last known location. Because without ZeroEyes now, people are just the first responders are getting their information from 911, but the 911's getting their information from a bunch of frantic phone callers, people that are like, hey, there's someone shooting, like whispering, or they're saying there's multiple shooters and when there's really only one, or they're giving them the wrong location. And so we're just trying to mitigate the fog of war, the confusion that comes in these scenarios. So the indoor outdoor thing, we should be on both with our client. Actually, let me think, out of all of our clients right now, yeah, they all do indoor, outdoor. None of them just do outdoor or just indoor. They get it. You want camera coverage.
Right. I just, I thought I'd ask about that just because, as you were saying, there's so many unique dynamics to each of these situations. Mike, in the case of, and obviously, this is the ZeroEyes platform is the core of this, but obviously, I guess you have strategy sessions thinking of sort of where else this all goes. And I was obviously the ideal situation is that you isolate this case, you make the call is made, and the proper first responders come. I had right down the road here in Philly also a couple months ago, I had this company on from a group called Ghost Robotics, which is doing really cool things. Yeah. Exactly. And again, obviously ideal if, you can get a live person there to be that first responder and interfere. As you think out about this, obviously, we probably don't have the robotic dogs jumping out with their little sniper rifles and all that stuff yet, but where do you think this potentially all goes into? Because, we're here in the era of AI, as you're mentioning, but we got autonomy and human robotics pairing and all this other neat stuff happening. Where would you like to see this ultimately evolve in terms of some of these other technologies that could potentially synergize with what you're doing at ZeroEyes?
Yeah, I mean, it's about saving time to save lives in these events. So particularly for ZeroEyes. So right now, yeah, we get the alert out. Our clients, local staff and local security, they receive it through the desktop and mobile app notification, and it gives them that information. So they can focus on getting people to safety and getting a response there as soon as possible. Simultaneously, it goes to 911. So the 911, and that's through our partnership with Rapid SOS, and that 911 operator now could give the right information to the first responders over their cop mic communications. But they still have to respond. Like, yeah, we're decreasing the response time there. But my thought process is, how can we even take more time out? Like, so if you have basically a drone in a box at one of these locations, the alert goes off, real alert goes off, and that allows that triggers the drone to autonomously fly to that geolocation from that alert. And then it could sit there and it could be another camera on that individual to keep track of them, because they might go into an area where there's no fixed point security cameras. And so we keep that live feed going, and simultaneously distract that person. If you could distract them even for a couple seconds, that could be the difference between life and death for many people. Yeah. And so that's where we see that going. And the military, applications that come with that to help protect our soldiers and airmen, sailors, et cetera.
Excellent. Mike, you were recently you received an award from the Philly Business Journal as a an extremely important veteran of influence, and your company has hired dozens of veterans. Can you just talk a little bit about obviously the importance of hiring veterans, but also sort of the defense tech in general has become a very hot area, as you know, in sort of the private equity space and sort of the this connection that we now see between startups and our defense department getting involved in investing in defense tech startups, veterans-based businesses, and so forth. Say a few words about that, because I think there's an incredible sort of potential here for sort of the development of this whole space out beyond, where we are today.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So yeah. I'll start with one. One, we love hiring veterans. We have, 130 people in our company, probably over 70 veterans right now. Some are still on, reservists, and they go do their 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. Some are completely out. And then we work with people that are on active duty that come over as an intern, and then we hire them as they transition out. And, having that bridge for veterans so they know they have a place they can go to and there's a mission for them is very important for transitioning vets. And you get, I know just from my experience of being in the military, they might not have the skills that you need in the business at that time, but you can train them, and you can train them, and they have the soft skills that everyone needs in a good company: communication, teamwork, leadership. Know when to be a leader, know when to step back and be a follower, know how to communicate across teams, set their ego aside, so to get the mission done. And that's important. So that was the one thing about veterans. Then you think about just defense tech and AI and everything in general. Oil's dominated the last several decades of world powers, right? It's like what's going on with oil. In the future, you're going to see that with all the chips that have to go into AI, because whoever's dominating AI, unfortunately, that's what's going to win on the battlefield in the future. And you're going to see that being more and more important. The problem with the defense tech industry today, it's very slow to adopt and to get through. You have all these great startups out there working on super cool tech that can really help on the battlefield. And it just because of the bureaucracy and everything that you see coming out of the Pentagon and the red tape to get this adopted and into the hands of the people that can use it on the battlefield takes years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there doing good work to try to, decrease that time, but time is of the essence when you think about that. And so I think you're going to see a lot of changes in that over the next couple of years. People are really starting to grasp that. I just hope we're not too far behind the curve against other folks in the world.
Got it. Mike, what's coming up for 2023? Conferences that you're going to be presenting at, places that we could see you, meet you in the Philadelphia area, or you be traveling. Anything else hot coming up? Please take the floor.
I have to look at our conference schedule. We actually decided to scale back on a lot of conferences this year because they're expensive, a lot of time, and then you got to send your team out there. And so we went to a lot over the last year and a half, 2 years. And then because we were trying to figure out which ones we really want to just put all of our eggs in, I have to figure out which ones they are. I'll be down at the Wharton ETA conference, awesome. A few other ones, but I'll let you know after. I can't think of any off the top of my head at the moment that are really sticking out to me that we'll be at. We go to a lot of the security conferences. You'll see us at the AI conferences, et cetera, the typical ones. You'll see some ZeroEyes representation there for sure.
Awesome. And then just one thing. The name of the company. I was talking to, I don't know if you saw the episode I did with John Sherman at the Pentagon recently, where he was going through all this concept of zero trust and this whole new $10 billion sort of system they're building down there. ZeroEyes, I assume it just means that there's no eyes on the, but the AI is doing all the work. But does it have another meaning beyond that?
Yeah. So it's kind of twofold. So yeah, you got that meaning, and it was also coming back to in the military when you're doing cryptology, like you're putting crypto into a radio or anything that, or
Yeah.
you want to wipe crypto, you would turn it and it looked like we call it Zing out the radios, turn it to
Okay.
zero eyes because it was like looks like two eyes together, and it was kind of a play on the military crypto background into AI to zero eyes. You got the AI scanning, so it was kind of, and we just thought it sounded cool.
No, yeah, it's very cool. I have to say that. I was just like, I wonder if it's connected to what the zero trust architecture, but whatever.
I did not come up with the name personally. There was another guy that came up with it, and we loved it and ran with it.
No, no, it's an awesome name. No, it's really really great stuff, Mike. I just like I said, I love seeing young companies grow as quickly. I mean, as again, it's a shame we need this service, but the fact that you're
Yeah.
developing it and you're getting it out there, I'll root you on until until there are no more mass shootings, and it's just really really great stuff. Um, Again, for everybody that is going to be listening to this particular episode of our show across the podcast networks or watching on the YouTube channel. Again, you've been listening to Michael Lahiff, Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of ZeroEyes. We will put the link to the company in the bio of the show when we go live. But Mike, I want to thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to come talk to us a little while about everything you're doing. Obviously, thanks you for doing it, and obviously, thank you for your long history of service to the country. And as we like to say on our show here, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow and a safer tomorrow for all of us via what you're doing. It's a really great story.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.